Beloved, let me tell you something today. You did not stumble across this message by accident. You are not here by coincidence. You are here because God wanted you to hear a word that could shift your entire life. Sometimes the smallest click, the smallest step of faith, becomes the turning point that changes everything. You may call it luck, but I call it divine appointment. Today, I want to declare to you, if you open your heart to this word, you will become the luckiest person alive, not because of chance, but because of choice. Life is filled with countless moments, but not every moment carries the same weight. Some moments are ordinary, while others are divine opportunities, disguised in simple form. Recognizing divine opportunities is one of the greatest keys to unlocking blessings in your life. Too often, people pray for answers, pray for breakthroughs, and pray for change. But when God sends the answer, they miss it because it doesn't arrive the way they expected. Divine opportunities rarely announce themselves with flashing lights or loud voices. They usually come quietly as a small nudge in your heart, an unexpected encounter, or a gentle whisper from the Spirit urging you to take a step. What many people call luck is often nothing more than recognizing the hand of God at work and responding in faith. When you fail to recognize these moments, you risk walking past doors that were meant to lead you into greater blessings. God does not force His will on anyone, He invites. Every divine opportunity is heaven's invitation asking you, will you trust me with this step? The challenge is that these opportunities may look inconvenient, risky, or even insignificant. Yet behind them is often the very breakthrough you have been waiting for. Recognizing them requires discernment, a listening heart, and the courage to believe that God is present even in small beginnings. Think about it this way. Many people stood around when David fought Goliath, but only David recognized that the giant was not just an obstacle, but an opportunity for God to reveal His power through him. To others, it was a hopeless battle, but to David, it was the very moment God had prepared him for all along. That is how divine opportunities work. They don't look like blessings at first, but when embraced, they turn into testimonies that change the course of your life. A simple but powerful example is the story of a man named John, who had been praying for financial breakthrough. He expected a large promotion at work, or perhaps someone to bless him with money. Instead, one day his friend offered him the chance to help part time with a small side project that didn't seem promising. John almost said no, because it looked too small, too ordinary. But something in his spirit told him to give it a try. That little opportunity grew into a full business that eventually supported his entire family. What looked like a small inconvenience was actually the seed of a greater blessing. John later realized that if he had ignored that simple invitation, he would have missed the very breakthrough he had been asking God for. The truth is, your luck does not begin when chance meets you. It begins when you learn to see God's fingerprints on the opportunities in front of you. Recognizing divine opportunities is recognizing that heaven is knocking on your door. The choice is yours. Will you dismiss it as ordinary, or will you step into it and discover the extraordinary? Faith is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience because it takes what seems ordinary and lifts it into the realm of the extraordinary. Many people wait for luck to change their lives, but real transformation does not come from chance. It comes from faith. Faith is believing that God is able to take a small act of obedience, a tiny seed of trust, and multiply it into something greater than you could ever imagine. What looks like just another moment in time can become the turning point of your life. When you choose to believe beyond what your eyes can see. Faith does not need ideal circumstances to work. In fact, it often shines brightest when everything looks impossible. To the natural mind, this may appear foolish, but to the one who believes, it is the gateway to miracles. You can be standing in the same situation as everyone else, but the difference is that faith gives you a different vision. Where others see defeat, you see potential victory. Where others see scarcity, you see God's provision waiting to be released. This is why faith is not passive. It is active trust in God's ability to do what we cannot do for ourselves. Consider the countless moments in the Bible where faith turned the ordinary into the miraculous. A boy's simple lunch of bread and fish looked like nothing compared to the hunger of 5,000 people. But faith in the hands of Jesus multiplied it to feed everyone with leftovers to spare. That is how faith works. It takes what you have, no matter how small, and makes it enough. The miracle did not begin when the food was distributed. It began when someone believed that even a little offering could be used by God. An excellent modern example is that of a young woman named Sarah. She dreamed of starting a small nonprofit to help children with education in her community. She had no wealthy donors, no big resources, just a conviction in her heart that God had placed this vision within her. People told her it was unrealistic, even foolish, to begin with nothing. But Sarah chose to believe that if she stepped out in faith, God would provide. She printed a few flyers with her own savings and began tutoring a handful of children in her living room. Within months, others began to notice her dedication and small donations began to flow. Years later, what started as a humble act of faith in her living room grew into a fully established community center, serving hundreds of children. What others would have dismissed as too small became the foundation for a miracle because she believed. Faith is not about ignoring reality. It's about inviting God's reality into yours. It is the bridge between what is and what can be. When you trust Him enough to take even a small step forward, you allow Him to turn that moment into something far greater than your human effort alone could ever produce. That is why faith does not just change circumstances, it transforms them into testimonies. What looks like luck to the world is, in truth, The power of faith turning ordinary moments into extraordinary miracles. Obedience is one of the most powerful principles that can transform a person's life because it aligns your heart with the will of God. Many people search for favor, hoping it will come through connections, wealth, or chance. But true favor is not earned through status. It is attracted through obedience. When you obey the voice of God, even when it is uncomfortable or inconvenient, you step into a position where blessings can find you. Obedience is not about following rules mechanically. It is about trusting that God's instructions are designed for your good, even when you cannot see the full picture. Favor is not random. It is intentional, and it flows wherever God is honored. Obedience is the doorway that lets heaven's resources enter your life. A person can have talent, ambition, and intelligence, but without obedience, those qualities may never reach their full potential. On the other hand, someone who simply says yes to God's direction can find themselves walking into opportunities they never imagined possible. Obedience draws the supernatural into your natural circumstances. It causes things to line up in your favor, even when others cannot explain why. The challenge is that obedience is often costly. It may require you to leave behind comfort, relationships, or opportunities that look appealing, but are not God's will for you. It might push you to step into unknown territory without a clear roadmap. But every act of obedience is a seed, and every seed produces fruit in its season. What seems like a sacrifice now becomes the foundation for favor later. A beautiful example of this can be seen in the life of a man named David. As a young shepherd, his daily act of obedience was simply caring for his father's sheep. It was not glamorous, nor did it seem like preparation for greatness. Yet, it was in those fields, obeying what looked like small instructions, that David developed the skills, the courage, and the heart that would later position him to face Goliath. When the moment came, God's favor elevated him before the nation because his life had already been built on obedience. The door of kingship did not open for David because of luck. It opened because his obedience had already attracted God's favor. A modern example can also make this clear. A young man named Daniel worked in a small company where he was often overlooked. One day, his boss asked him to take on an extra assignment that no one else wanted because it seemed boring and insignificant. Daniel felt like saying no, but something in him urged him to accept it with diligence and integrity. Weeks later, the company underwent restructuring, and it was Daniel's faithful handling of that small assignment that caught the attention of senior management. That obedience to a simple task positioned him for a promotion he never expected. What others dismissed as unimportant became the very platform where God's favor lifted him. Obedience may not always make sense in the moment, but it always makes room for favor. When you walk in obedience, you don't have to chase blessings. Blessings chase you. Doors open that no one can shut. Opportunities arise that you never planned for, and favor follows you wherever you go. What looks like luck to the world is actually the reward of obedience to God's call. Life has a way of placing trials in our path that feel overwhelming, unfair, and at times unbearable. In those moments, it can be tempting to believe that God has forgotten us or that our story is destined to end in defeat. But the truth is this: every trial is not the conclusion of your journey. It is the preparation for your testimony. What looks like the end is often just the middle of the story. God specializes in taking what the enemy meant for harm and flipping it into a blessing that brings him glory and strengthens your faith. Trials are not wasted when placed in God's hands. They become the very foundation of a testimony that will inspire and encourage others. When you go through trials, you discover strength you did not know you had, endurance you never thought possible, and faith that grows deeper than before. Trials strip away pride, self-reliance, and distractions, leaving you with a greater dependence on God. This is why what looks like a setback can actually be a setup for breakthrough. Without trials, there can be no victories. Without battles, there can be no triumphs. The very thing you thought would break you often becomes the thing that makes you stronger, wiser, and more equipped for your purpose. Think about Joseph in the scriptures, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. Joseph's life seemed like one misfortune after another. Anyone watching from the outside might have said he was cursed with bad luck. But God was writing a different story. Every trial was positioning Joseph for something greater. When the famine struck Egypt, Joseph was elevated to second in command, and his testimony became the saving grace, not just for a nation, but also for the very brothers who had betrayed him. His trials became the soil for his testimony, showing that what the enemy meant for evil, God turned into good. A modern example illustrates this beautifully. Maria, a young woman with a promising career, suddenly lost her job due to company downsizing. It felt like the rug had been pulled out from under her feet. Bills piled up, and she wrestled with fear and discouragement. For months, she sent applications with no success. Instead of giving up, she turned to prayer and began volunteering at a local shelter to keep her spirit alive. One day, while helping at the shelter, she met someone who introduced her to a new opportunity in social work. That connection led to a career that not only provided financial stability, but also gave her deeper fulfillment than her old job ever had. What began as a devastating trial became the foundation of her testimony. And today, she encourages others who face job loss to trust that God can turn endings into new beginnings. Every trial you endure carries the seed of a testimony within it. When you allow God to work through your struggles, He does not just bring you out. He brings you out stronger, wiser, and with a story that can inspire others. So never view your trials as wasted. In God's hands, they become the very evidence that His grace is greater than any obstacle. Your pain becomes purpose. Your mess becomes a message, and your trial becomes your testimony. Gratitude is one of the most powerful attitudes a person can carry because it shifts the focus from what is missing to what has already been given. Many people spend their lives waiting for something bigger before they give thanks. Believing abundance comes only when circumstances change. But the truth is that abundance begins with a thankful heart. Gratitude is the key that unlocks more blessings because it acknowledges the goodness of God in every season. When you choose to see the gift in the present moment, no matter how small, you create room for heaven to release greater treasures. A grateful heart magnifies what it has. When you give thanks for little, that little becomes more than enough. When you thank God for the breath in your lungs, for the roof over your head, for the food on your table, you suddenly begin to see how blessed you already are. Gratitude does not deny struggles, but it shifts the perspective to recognize that even in the midst of trials, there are reasons to give thanks. And when you live with that posture, abundance flows, not just in material things, but in peace, joy, and contentment. The reason gratitude unlocks abundance is simple: it keeps your spirit open. Complaining closes doors because it focuses only on lack. But thanksgiving opens doors because it acknowledges the source of every blessing. God is drawn to a heart that gives Him glory, and when you thank Him sincerely, you align yourself with the flow of His favor. Gratitude is not just an emotion, it is a declaration of trust, saying, "Though I may not have everything I want, but I know you have already given me more than enough." That attitude attracts more. An excellent example of this is a man named Robert who, after losing his job, struggled to make ends meet. At first, he was bitter and constantly complained about his situation, which only made him feel more hopeless. One day, however, he decided to shift his perspective. Instead of focusing on what he had lost, he began to write down 3 things he was thankful for each morning. Some days it was as simple as being grateful for waking up, for a meal, or for a kind word from a neighbor. Over time, his spirit grew lighter, his outlook brighter, and people began to notice the change in his attitude. That gratitude attracted new relationships and opened unexpected doors. Within a year, Robert was offered a new position that not only paid more, but also gave him greater purpose. He often said afterward, "The job didn't change my life. Gratitude did. The job was just the fruit of it." This is the mystery of gratitude. It multiplies blessings. What begins as small thanksgiving creates space for larger testimonies. Abundance is not about how much you hold in your hand, but about how much you appreciate in your heart. The more you thank God for what you have, the more He trusts you with what is yet to come. Gratitude unlocks the abundance that was waiting all along. There is a difference between being lucky and being chosen, and when you understand this truth, it transforms the way you see your life. Luck suggests chance, randomness, or coincidence. But being chosen means intentionality, purpose, and destiny. You are not here on this earth because of an accident or a roll of the dice. You are here because God Himself handpicked you, designed you, and placed you in this world with a calling that only you can fulfill. That truth is far greater than any so-called good luck charm or random stroke of fortune. Luck fades, but being chosen lasts forever. When you believe you are lucky, you may start to think your blessings are fragile, that they could vanish at any moment if circumstances change. But when you understand that you are chosen, you walk with confidence, knowing that your life is built on divine foundation. To be chosen means God has His hand on you even when you do not see it. It means every step you take, every season you go through is guided by His plan. Being chosen is not about avoiding challenges, but about being assured that no challenge can cancel the destiny God has placed over your life. Living as chosen changes how you respond to life. Instead of comparing yourself to others and envying what they have, you recognize that your portion is unique and designed specifically for you. Instead of fearing that opportunities will pass you by, you trust that what God has for you cannot be taken by anyone else. Being chosen means favor follows you, not because of what you've done, but because of who you belong to. Consider the example of Esther in the Bible. To the outside world, she may have looked lucky, a young woman who just happened to be selected as queen. But the truth was deeper. She was chosen for such a time as this. Her position was not random. It was God's plan to use her to save her people. What others might have called luck was actually divine selection. Esther did not stumble into destiny. She was appointed to it. Her story reminds us that when God calls you chosen, He aligns every detail of your life to fit that calling. A modern example can be seen in a man named Michael who grew up in difficult circumstances. He often felt like life had dealt him the worst cards: poverty, broken family, and constant setbacks. For years, he believed others were simply lucky to have opportunities he didn't. But one day, while reflecting on his life, he realized something powerful. Despite his hardships, he always found himself being protected, provided for, and guided in unexpected ways. He survived situations others did not. He met mentors at the right time. Doors opened that should have been closed. Michael came to see that it wasn't luck keeping him. It was the hand of God. He was chosen to rise out of his struggles and inspire others with his story. Today, he speaks to young people from similar backgrounds, reminding them that they too are chosen, not abandoned. When you live as chosen, you stop chasing luck and start walking in purpose. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence, knowing you are loved, favored, and equipped by God. Your life is not a gamble, it is a calling. And when you embrace that truth, you discover that being chosen is far greater than being lucky. It is the assurance that your steps are ordered and your destiny is secure. So hear me today. You are not here by accident. This click, this moment, is a divine setup for your breakthrough. If you believe, if you receive, if you step into faith, you will see God's hand move in ways you never imagined. The world may call it luck, but we know it's His love, His grace, His divine appointment. Walk away today declaring, I am not just lucky, I am blessed, I am chosen, and I am favored.